All right, welcome back, Powers on Sports Podcast. Now it is time to look at the Alabama side of things for the Rose Bowl matchup here coming up on New Year's Day out in lovely Pasadena. And no better person to talk to than the guy that will be on the play-by-play call for the Rose Bowl for the Crimson Tide Sports Network, our buddy Chris Stewart, who's gracious enough to join us post-Christmas, getting ready for his broadcast on New Year's Day. Welcome in, Mr. Stewart.
Man, it's always good to talk to you. I appreciate the invitation. And I got to tell you, I've heard it several times, but getting goosebumps hearing that I'm on the call for the Rose Bowl. I've never been to Pasadena and excited about being out there here soon and getting a chance to take all of that in and broadcast what I hope is another Alabama win out there.
That's my first question. I mean, obviously, you and I have grown up watching the Rose Bowl game on
Sure.
TV every New Year's Day. Just talk about the pageantry of this game and the stadium overlooking the San
Yeah.
Gabriel Mountains and all the pageantry of the Rose Bowl parade and all that good stuff. Just talk about what an honor it is to be able to be in that environment for a few
Oh,
days.
yeah, it's amazing. You know what? I've been a part of as you know, Jason, a long time, more than 20 years. I've been a part of the Alabama broadcast in different roles, but unfortunately, um, 2009, so I guess 2010 Rose Bowl um, or championship game, my part of the crew didn't travel. It was Tyler Watts and I, and we did the pregame and postgame. And that was the season when I think the economy tanked and a
Yeah.
lot of the travel that we had done in previous years, we no longer did. So that meant that we did the pregame from home, and I'll never forget um, how funny it was because we we did the pregame from Baumhauer's in Birmingham because Tyler and I both lived there, and Bob Baumhauer, of course,
Uh-huh.
NFL great, and Bama guy has restaurants in Alabama, and we did the pregame show from the one in Birmingham. Got a to go order, took it home, ate, and 15 minutes before the game's even coming on the air, I'll look over at my wife. I'm sitting in a chair and she's on the couch and she's got a death grip on the edge of the couch. I mean, she's digging into it with her nails. And I said, "Babe, are you okay?" She goes, "What do you mean am I okay? We're about to play for a national championship." Uh, and I was like, "Well, okay." She gets it. And to watch that game and again, it was from the other end of the country, but to see it and then do post game,
Yeah.
that was I took the phone calls on the post game show back during. I'm not picking on him when I say this. He had a tough time and a tough hand that he was dealt, and did a fantastic job for a place that he loves. But there were some rough times during during the years with even DeBose, excuse me, certainly DeBose, but um, with Franchione and then
Right.
Mike Shula.
Right.
And having done the post game call in show during that era, to get a chance to do the post game after a national championship win, man, you
Yeah.
better believe I was staying on the air and taking every phone call that anybody wanted to make. So it was about 2:30 Central Time when I finally said goodnight from my basement. Is where I did the show, and it was very enjoyable and hopefully getting to see it in person and be a
Right.
part of that in person and actually being on the play by play is going to have a chance to be even more meaningful, even though it's not for the title, but it's for the chance to play for it one game later.
Well, if you win in Pasadena, you're going to Houston
Yeah,
for the title game, and a lot of people think, and going back to the game a little bit, a lot of people think this is a good matchup for Alabama. Obviously, the rigors of going through the SEC. We saw what
sure.
Alabama was able to do to for a lot of that game at the SEC title game, control the game against Georgia, and we're the better team for
Right.
most of that game. Give me a quick sense of how did Alabama come out of the Georgia game? Obviously, they won the game, and obviously, you guys are on pins and needles whether you're going to get in or not. The next day, you get in. Just the atmosphere around the program following that SEC title game.
Yeah, excited obviously to get the win, and then elated to get the word that you're the fourth team in.
Right.
Um, I do feel bad for Florida State.
Yep.
Um, Worked for Michael Alford, the athletic director at FSU. He was the general manager of the Crimson Tide Sports Network,
Okay.
not at the first of my tenure, but early in my tenure in Tuscaloosa. And I love
Mhm.
working for Michael. Great guy, great administrator, and understandably passionate about his program. But, you know, I don't think Alabama has to apologize for being
No.
one of the four that's in. And just, I think being in the mix, being able to go play for it now, this group is excited. And you're right, Michigan. And it's not just Michigan. Here's the, for me, Jason, and I may be wrong on this, but the tradition of Ohio State and Michigan is the best, obviously, in that conference. At the same time, they have done the best job, I think, that they can of doing what the really dominant Southern teams have done. And certainly Alabama's been leading the pack in that regard. But there have been others with Georgia the last 2 years, and there are several others that have had their pockets of success as well. But I think with Ohio State and Michigan, they have replicated adding speed to the size that they have
Right.
better than anybody else in their conference. That being said, they still haven't been able to replicate the amount of speed. I think they've got it in some spots at skill
Yep.
positions, and I haven't fully broken it down like I will by the time we get into kickoff. But I think in general, those two programs have been able to match it at the skill positions what we have in the SEC, the best level. They have great linemen. They have great linebackers. I don't know that they run at the
Right.
level that the SEC's best do. And I think that's where Alabama's edge lies in this game. Don't get me wrong. There's not much of a margin for error. But if it's best against best, I think the speed factor is what helps Alabama in that ball game.
And I think if you're Michigan, you're going to try to lean on the physicality of your offensive
Sure.
line. I think they're going to try,
No
and
doubt.
that's where again, the SEC, the depths on the offensive and defensive lines in the SEC compared to other conferences are what separate a lot of these teams. And again,
Mm-hmm.
Michigan's got an elite offensive line. They've got a really good defense, but you're right. The speed of the secondary and the linebackers between Michigan and Alabama could be a difference here, as part of where a team might get an advantage, or especially when it comes to covering backs out of the backfield, tight ends, things like that, where Michigan, we'll see. That's that. But I think
Right.
Michigan's going to lean on their physicality. They're going to try to run the ball down Alabama's throat if they can,
Yeah.
um, and lean on that. Talk about 3.5 weeks off. Do you think this is a scenario, especially from the Alabama side, where they're going to figure out, really self-scout and figure out these are the things we do really well? We're going to try to perfect this? Or do you think there's going
Right.
to be some scheming of, hey, let's throw in a few wrinkles here, whether it's formationally, whether it's new plays? How do you think Nick Saban has tended to do these kind of things over the years with 3.5, 4 weeks of time to prep?
I think you are who you are, but you want to be the best version of who you are. And that's what this time allows him to do. That being said, uh, there will be some things they mix in, just as Michigan does, to try to keep you guessing a little bit, to try to keep you off balance. But at this point, and especially with where Alabama has been progressing, this team is so much better than they were when you and I broke bread together down in Tampa,
Yeah.
uh, before that USF game. They're just so much better. They lost to obviously a great Texas team with some miscues they'd love to have back. They played bad against South Florida, though, and were fortunate to get out of there with a win. South Florida played really gutty football that day and gave Alabama all they wanted. Um, but I really think, Jason, the switch flipped in the final 6.5 minutes of that game at USF, because even though the guy that it was Ty Simpson that was at quarterback, but that team got the ball up only 7 with 6.5 minutes to go and bled 6 minutes out of the clock before they put another touchdown on the board. And I think it was a fourth down play where either you score and you make it a 2-score game, or you have to turn it over, and obviously you don't want to turn it over. So Bama was
Right.
able to punch it in, finish the drive,
Yep.
and even though it was not a well played game, you took the game away and you took hope away at the end, and I think that has been a springboard for Alabama. They followed it up with a win against Ole Miss when Ole Miss was early peaking, and obviously he's turned out to be a very good team. Uh, I'm I've been really impressed, and Jalen Milroe is the one that heads that up at quarterback. That's where things flipped. He wasn't even the guy at USF, as you know,
Right.
never saw the
Didn't
field,
play. Didn't play
didn't
down.
play, but it was obvious after that game, he's the guy. He's who gives you the best chance to win. And he has just improved, and Alabama's rallied behind him. It has been really enjoyable to watch that young man have the success that he's had, and in turn lead this squad to a well-earned berth in the college football playoff.
And like you mentioned, late in the game in the SEC title game, Milroe's legs were key. And I think that's where his legs potentially will be a key in this game against that Michigan defense, where if they can run the ball with the running back, then you still have the threat of Milroe with the RPOs and all that kind of stuff. And that's going to potentially open up the play action where you can maybe throw it over the top where they've had some success. He's a good deep ball thrower. I think Milroe's legs and the confidence that Tommy Rees is having in calling those kind of plays now, that you don't have to protect him. This is the end of the road here for the year. He's not like you have 4 more games to worry about. You got 2 games left. I think you'll see Milroe be a big part of the running game as well, potentially.
No, it's huge, and so tough as well. He has done it with his legs. He was really, and you're right, mostly it's with the deep ball is where he's best passing it. Man, he was thankfully razor sharp from 31 yards out
Woo!
on fourth down and
Woo!
down on the plains, and that was a phenomenal throw that'll go
Uh-huh.
down in Alabama football lore forever, especially if this team finishes it off to win the national title.
And you got a potential rematch with Texas. How sweet would
Yeah.
that be from a national perspective if you get a second matchup with potentially Texas? 2 more questions, I'll get you out of here.
Yeah.
Are there any known guys that we know are not going to be involved in this game, whether it's injury related, potentially transfer portal? Are there any of that stuff been for sure? We know certain guys are not playing in the game because of injury.
As you and I talk right here, the answer is no. And here's why. Corey Brooks has entered the portal. I think has said he's going to go to Louisville. And I'll be honest with you, as I'm sitting here with you having this conversation, I don't know if that means he's out the door. I believe
Gotcha.
he is.
Gotcha.
I believe he is. Um, he is a guy who you may recall 2 years ago had the catch in the 4 overtime game against
Right.
Auburn. It was at the
Right.
end of regulation. He made a great catch from Bryce Young that in the moment was about as dramatic as the 4th and 31 play.
Right.
It was a drive where Bama went 98 or 99 yards
Yeah.
to force overtime and then won it in the fourth, and kept its hopes for a national championship alive in that game where they ultimately lost to Georgia in the rematch after beating them in Atlanta in the SEC title game. So I would be surprised if he
Right.
plays, but again, Isaiah Bond and oh, good grief, you got to help me out. I feel terrible that I'm drawing a blank on a guy who's meant as much as he has, but Jermaine Burton.
Yes.
Thank you. Cheat sheet. Jermaine and Isaiah, along with Amari Niblack, as a kind of a tight end,
Yep.
wide receiver, hybrid guy. Kobe Prentice, those are your top
Yep.
receivers in terms of yardage, and it's a balanced group. There's not the one guy
Not a
like
Julio Jones.
Alabama.
There's not a
There's
Julio
not a
Jones.
there's not Julio. There's not one of the 4 guys that were
Right.
on one team that went the NFL. Like
Right.
I'm talking to you, looking at video of Devontae Smith just over the camera here.
Amari Cooper, those kind of guys.
Yeah, there's not one of those, but they're all really good. Bama's won.
Right.
Look, when Bama beat Texas for the national championship in the Rose Bowl,
Yes.
that wasn't a team that had. Well, let me back up. That team did have Julio, but the team, I guess it was the year before, that had Darius Hanks,
Right.
and also young man from Birmingham. Sucks getting old, man.
I'm
Sucks
with
getting
you,
old,
man. I'm
Jason.
with you, man.
No, but
We're-
they didn't have the marquee guy, is
Correct.
my point, that helped put them in position. So these guys, I'm not going to say they're no names, because they have made major
Solid
names for
contributors.
themselves,
Solid
but they
contributors.
weren't at the start of the year
Right.
what they are now,
Right.
and that's been fun. They've just gotten better and better and better.
Last thing, all right, tell the audience where they can find all the great work you guys do with the Crimson Tide Sports Network. If they're not in the Alabama area, be able to listen to local broadcasts. If they're around the country, where can they find
Sure.
you and your great broadcast? Because if you didn't see Chris Stewart at the SEC title game, he had a fantastic call as they went to the fourth quarter. You can find it up online, and that was fantastic the way he set up the fourth quarter in the Alabama Crimson Tide getting to the SEC title to the finish line. Tell all the great
I
fans where they can
appreciate
find
it.
your great work.
Well, that's nice of you. But the Varsity app makes it possible to have us wherever you are. And we've got a great list of affiliate stations all
Yep.
over the Southeast and the country. But the Varsity app is the easiest way to tell an audience such as yours, because yours is online, I know, as well. And so wherever you happen to be, that Varsity app, it's a free download and a free listen. You just search Alabama Crimson Tide. Once you have it, and you can hear our broadcast, we come on the air 3 hours before kickoff. We're also going to do a bowl preview show with Coach Saban, very similar to his weekly radio show. We'll do 90 minutes from the hotel ballroom there
Yep.
in
Yes.
Los Angeles.
Right.
So we're excited about getting a chance to do that 2 nights before. We'll be off and ring in the new year the right way, and then hopefully start the new year in a fantastic way with a semifinal win and the granddaddy of them all before we hopefully will move on to Houston.
5 o'clock Eastern time is kickoff for the Rose Bowl. The normal time, you're going to see they're going to be the first of the 2 games. You'll have Texas and Washington wrap it up in the Sugar Bowl at like 8:30. Are you going to go to Roscoe's Chicken and Waffles? Are you going to get some Roscoe's or some In-N-Out Burger or whatever?
Man, yeah, knowing me, I'll probably hit everything before it's all said and done. I'll see a good bit. I'm always going to make sure I find the food, man. There is no doubt. But chicken and waffles sound pretty good right now.
Well, Chris, have a great broadcast. We look forward to seeing you on the broadcast. You're going to be in Houston, I hope, and calling another national title game. But keep up the great work, you and Tyler Watts, Crimson Tide Sports Network. Have a happy New Year as you're ringing in the New Year. Don't stay out too late now. New Year's Eve.
Promise. Curfew.
Good night's
Curfew.
sleep now. That's right. That's right.
That's
So
right.
appreciate the
Thank you,
time,
buddy.
Chris. Hope you had a great Christmas with the family and have a great New Year and have a great call.
Thank you, buddy. Appreciate you.
You got it.